All right, English 149. Welcome to an interview with an industry professional. I wanted to ask some questions of Matt, the mortgage guy here, so that you guys can get a better idea about what communications can look like in the real world. For context here, Matt, before I introduce you, we're looking at about 100 students. They are all engineers of some shape or form. This is technical writing for engineers. So this is a writing-based course. We deal with tone, voice, persuasion, informational documents, instructional documents. Our main focus overall is really thinking about our audience when we write anything. And so as technical writers, we're not the star of the show. Our documents are the star of the show, and we want to accomplish things just over paper or over our digital medium. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but really it's about our audience and kind of delivering the information needs of our audience and satisfying whatever they may need. And so I thought of you because, well, we met basically over the internet when I was searching for potential mortgage brokers or lenders for my first house purchase. And based on Google search results or however, whatever algorithms were out there in my search terms, somehow I landed on Matt the Mortgage Guy. I checked out a few of your early YouTube videos. They were super honest and informational. And yeah, you just had a great conversational vibe. And so that made my decision easy because I didn't really know what I was doing. So we kind of touched base there and have stayed in touch since then. So I guess to introduce you, this is Matt Gougé, Matt the Mortgage Guy. He's based out of this greater Sacramento area. He used to work in lending at a bank, a local bank in, oh, not a regional bank, I think you'd call it, right? For Mountain West
Right.
Financial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he has recently become an independent mortgage broker, which is for many lenders, I guess, maybe the next step if you are
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a different style or different setup. And I hate to kind of tout it as the better version of
Okay.
lending because there's certainly examples where, someone's better served working in a retail environment or a bank environment. And, they all serve a different purpose. But for me and my business, it was an evolution and the next step. And really for me, it felt like a step into running and controlling my own business, which is what I'm doing now.
Okay, cool. So it's a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little bit more startup-ish as compared
Yeah,
to
for sure.
okay, so like a bank. A lot of my students are interested in some of these bigger engineering firms or bigger tech firms in general, and there's a lot of built-in infrastructure there as opposed to more of a flexible startup, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I felt like an employee there and I feel like a business owner here. And like you said, there's infrastructure and there's certain things that are going to attract certain people, I guess,
Okay.
probably to the retail lending world than other people who are more entrepreneurial or and want their own thing in a certain sense are going to gravitate towards the broker world.
Okay, cool. So I just have I have a handful of questions here. We'll see if we stick to the list or branch out from there. But most of them are related to communications in some shape or form. So I think I'll just start off and say, what does Matt the Mortgage Guy stand for, and how is that reflected in your overall message to customers?
Okay, sure. And early on in my career, I started branding Matt the Mortgage Guy. And what it stands for, in my opinion, is just, hey, I'm your mortgage guy. And it's got like that kind of relaxed feel that, I'm on your team. And, our company philosophy, I guess, is delivering a faster, easier, more affordable loan process than anywhere else. But the Matt the Mortgage Guy brand, I think, just stands for, you know, when somebody says, "Oh, I've got a guy," whether that's for their car repairs, whether that's for whatever it is, when somebody thinks mortgage, I want them to think Matt the Mortgage Guy.
I mean, I think that's fair to say that when you phrase something as Matt the Mortgage Guy, it certainly feels a little bit less formal than maybe like an old, tried and true, outdated bank.
First, I mean, when I started too, it's a funny story. I've only been doing mortgage for about 6.5 years, and when I got started, one of the first things any business does when you're getting started is like trying to figure out my logo, trying to figure out how I'm going to brand myself. I had these really, you know, super professional looking things and ideas,
Hmm.
you know, and it was, I don't even remember what the names were, but my wife actually, she's taken the credit, and you know, she deserves it because she really came up with the Matt the Mortgage Guy. She said,
Okay.
people just want a mortgage guy. Just go with Matt the Mortgage Guy. And it served me very well, I think.
Yeah, I will say that as cheesy as it might sound, the email that I got after my loan closed on my house, that had a little cartoon that showed me signing my paperwork and like congratulations on your home purchase, like that little like it almost brought me to tears, to be honest. It was just like such a simple straightforward thing, but it's like it doesn't need to be more than that, at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think something like a mortgage that most people think of as stressful and not very fun, it's okay to bring a little bit of fun to it, and
Mhm.
make it something that's, you know, a lot of people in my industry talk about nobody wants a mortgage. The house is the emotional fun part of it. The mortgage is the stressful, gosh, I've got to do this part of it. But if done the right way, I think, you know, I've done interviews on this and I've talked to people about this. Like, I want to make it fun. Maybe it
Mhm.
can't be super fun, like going on a roller coaster, but you know, it can definitely be a good experience,
Yeah,
enjoyable experience.
there's a time and place to be serious. I guess, building off of that, so you're an independent broker, so you obviously have a little bit more flexibility than maybe a traditional bank that has a system. Can you identify maybe one uh, document or kind of communication that you treat very differently than maybe the traditional bank? How you might handle it versus how might they handle it? Whether it's something on your website or an email newsletter or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's more flexibility on my side. You know, there's probably, especially if you're talking bank, and then there's the retail mortgage outfits, they've just got a corporate structure. And this is exactly how they do things. I've got the ability to say, some of my clients like to text. Some of my clients want to see a video when I communicate with them. I can do a bonbon video. And so flexibility in how I communicate is huge, I think, because I'm excited, Sean, honestly, for some feedback from you and your students on what different age groups, different demographics, how they want to be communicated to. Because I've
Okay.
learned that everybody's different. And one of the things that has really helped me in my business is realize, um, you know, I've got to try to uncover that up front, because how somebody's experience is, good or bad, is going to be dependent on how they want to be communicated with. There's some people that would be offended if I send them a text.
Okay.
And there's some people that be offended if I call them. You know, somebody's like, pick up the gosh darn phone and call me. This
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
big deal. I'm buying the biggest asset of my life. And other people are like, man, he just needed this one document. Why didn't he just text me and ask me for that? And
Yeah.
that's, you know, different people want to be communicated to differently.
Do you think that you could run through your list of like 50, let's say the first 50 alphabetical clients on your list, and be able to just look at a name and say that person wants a video, that person wants a text? I mean, is that something that you could remember?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. And you know, probably not with exact precision, but I could
Sure.
remember like, oh yeah, I never talked to this person ever. They
Hmm.
loved us. They wrote a review. They had a great experience. They've referred us for people, but phone conversation zero. And then other clients where it's like, man, they wanted to talk every single day. It was either
Hmm.
me or somebody on my staff that talked to them every single day. Great, sweet people that, you know, because they were so in love with communication,
Hmm.
it's helped our business, because when they're at church or when they're anywhere out, if anyone mentions mortgage, oh gosh, you got to call
Hmm.
my guy Matt the Mortgage Guy and his team. They're great. So yeah, that's something that is important.
In terms of tracking that information internally, I mean, I think you have a team of 4 or 5 people. Is that something where you're taking notes and saying, all right, we closed, this person likes this kind of thing? Or do you have like a software, like a database that has notes like that? Or how do you keep track of all that?
You know what? I honestly don't have a true system in place that
Okay.
has like a, you know, this person wants text. There's certainly internal notes where every single client, we've got a system called Pipe Drive, where any communication with anybody gets saved there, and there'll be notes of those type that say, you know, please give them a call every time you send an email with a list of items needed, because stuff, they have communicated to us that stuff gets lost in their email. They don't want to miss it.
Okay.
So make sure you call them every time, or shoot them a text every time something's needed on their end, because they prefer text. And so that's in there. It's an interesting idea to think about, that maybe that should be something that's part of a checklist to kind of get with up front, so that we just, anybody on the team working on that file through this pipe drive system can just see, okay, they like text.
It's hard. Yeah. A system of notes is really hard because it requires somebody to actually look at those notes and read them. I know when I worked, um, I can't remember if you, so I was tired of realtors. So I got my realtor's license basically. And so I had a broker who, was kind of my like unofficial boss, I guess. And I know one thing that he struggled with internally is that he was so passionate about maintaining a checklist, but unless something was like hard coded on the screen where you had to click next, people weren't actually going through each of those steps. So that it seems like a tough internal management thing regardless.
Yeah, and I think it's just over time, and I'm communicating with my team twice a week. We get on a Zoom call, and what I've tried to do lately is ask them, what can I do better? Because if I'm being honest and transparent, the notes in Pipedrive, I've hired people that are very well organized, very systems oriented, way better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so my team does an excellent job of, they open up the person's Pipedrive, take notes as they're talking to them, make sure that everybody's in the loop. I'm the very worst. If we ranked, because I'm taking calls, 12 or 14 hours a day, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking to get lunch, or I'm doing something and I'm not sitting in front of the computer to be able to put the notes in. And that's an important part of any business, I think, too, is not getting to the finish line and saying, oh, Matt had a conversation with them 11 days ago. They want the house to be titled in husband and wife's name. Nobody got that memo because
Mm-hmm.
Matt picked up the next call right after that one, and didn't get it. And so really, I think what's happening now, Sean, is as business grows, where you realize one human being can only handle so much stuff. And I think we're going to serve something like 225 families this year. It's something now where I know those more administrative tasks are going to be on the team. I'm going to talk about certain stuff and advise at a high level on interest rate options and buying the rate down or not, and putting down 25% versus 30%. But the administrative stuff, that's going to be on the people that's their strong suit. They're
Sure.
going to find out exactly, how they want it titled, and get the details down. I'm not a very detailed guy. I got to be honest.
Okay. Um, Kind of speaking to that teamwork, my students right now, I think I mentioned something in our email, but my students are tasked with kind of critiquing a real world entity and their documents or communications that are being sent out to the world, entities that are more or less at your magnitude. Um, can you, so I guess what I want to ask, this is more of an internal team communication type thing. So what they're ultimately going to produce is a set of recommendations for their various entities. And what I found to be the biggest weakness from teams that have done this in the past is that this document that they send to me or to the outside world looks like and feels like it's been touched by many hands rather than some sort of cohesive message that's been sent out there. Um, I don't know to what I mean. There's not that much, I guess, flexibility of language in terms of legal documentation like you deal with. Um, any tips or guidance as to how to get all of your people on the same page regarding like tone, voice, message, formatting of documents? Like this is how memos look when they're being sent by Matt the mortgage guy, so that everyone who sends a memo or an email from you kind of looks the same. Do you have any system like that?
There's no formal system, but I 100% agree with what you're saying, where you want any organization size, me being 5 people or an organization that's bigger, you want anything that's coming as communication from us all looking the same. It's speaking on behalf of the Matt the Mortgage Guy brand. And that's very important to me, because I feel like we've built a good brand with a good reputation. People like us, people trust us, people refer us. And so really, I think it's just kind of course correcting as we go, and reminding everybody on the team what our values are, because we've got certain stuff where it's like, here's our pre-approval template, and we fill it out, and it's going to always look the same because we're working out the same document.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, the communications, the one thing that I know runs through every single person on my team is that we genuinely care about the client. And I think that even if there's a little bit of discrepancy in how we might ask for a document that we need, or how we might, you know, formulate an email that gets sent over, there's that underlying, like, we're here to help you out. What can we do to help you out? That, I think, is more important than, you know, if something's exactly the same and how it comes over. Because I see some stuff sometimes where I would have ordered it different, or I might have asked for something different than somebody else on the team, but ultimately it's with the same level of, we care about you, we want to make this smooth for you. What can we do to help? Here's what we need.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't remember if I told you way back when one of the jobs I used to work in television in some shape or form, and I was an assistant in the writers' room on The Office during season 3. And one of the toughest things for new writers to do was to come in their first year as a staff writer, let's say, and write a script that matched the voice of the show. So there would be, you know, a number of jokes that just didn't seem like they came from the character, like in a natural way. So that's, yeah, I think it goes to show that, like, there is a self-correction that happens over time that's not going to happen automatically.
Right, right. Yeah. And so the internal stuff that comes from us, and also I would love to get your feedback, your students' feedback on, you know, you can Google Matt the Mortgage Guy, and there's going to be videos, articles, you know, you can look on the website and poke through an application or something. My hope is that all that stuff kind of represents the brand and has a, you know, message that's clear throughout it.
Is there
And
is there a specific document or link or two that you want to, you know, throw out there as ones that you're particularly curious or concerned about?
I think it just landing on the website, I would love for people to poke around and critique that, just because so much stuff points people back to the website, because the webs and what I really, I think, want to figure out is if there's any question in how to do business with us, because ideally it's easy. And I
Mhm.
think that the analysis I've done of my own business and stuff that I've tried to implement is, I say, if there's a real estate agent, or a, you know, divorce lawyer, or a financial advisor, anybody who's trying to send us business,
Mhm.
I want it to be easy. I
Yeah.
don't want them to be like, how, because I've come across that. And as somebody who's networking and referring people to businesses, the one of the biggest frustrations is like, oh my gosh, this person's a well-known real estate agent and I can't find their phone number
Mhm.
online in 7 minutes. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I want it to be super clear and super easy. I never want it to be a hurdle for someone to say, like, oh, I thought about you and I wanted to refer my neighbor to you to talk about refinance. I don't know. I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And continually working on that, right? And sending out bomb videos and blasts to realtors saying, hey, if you're thinking about referring us, we want to make it as easy as possible on you. Here's exactly what you do. We've
Mhm.
gone to the lengths of, you know, drafting a template and drafting, you know, if you think your client wants to be introduced via email, here's how
Mhm.
you do it. If they're email, if they're a group text person, here's how you do it. If they just want to be directed straight to the site, here's where you go. And trying to make it as easy as possible to
Mhm.
say, if you want to do business with us, we want to make it easy.
Yeah, I couldn't sign up for lap swimming at the pool because I couldn't figure out their system, and I'm like, I'm a smart person. Like, what's the deal here? People don't know how to sign up to get medical appointments. I'm trying to help the city here. I'm basically saying, look, I have students who are eager to help you out, and then I'm like giving them all these ideas, and it's more trouble than it's worth. And finally I'm just like, I can't help you if I'm doing 98% of the help plus trying to figure out your system. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
I
That's
totally
that's
get that.
exactly what I don't want.
um, all right, so if my students were critiquing the communications of other businesses, maybe something in your same line of work, are there any common weaknesses you see time and again that they should look out for? Actually, it doesn't even have to be mortgage related. Maybe even just local restaurants that you go to, or any, if you communicate with escrow companies or realtors or whatever, any common communication weaknesses?
My belief is that over time, things are getting advanced by technology. And so people are going to want to interact with easy to use technology, whether it's their banking, whether it's their mortgage, whether it's, paying your SMUD bill, whatever the heck it is. And I've seen good examples of holy moly, that was super easy. Some loan servicers where you log into their website to pay your mortgage and it's super easy. And then I've seen other examples where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't figure out how to just set up auto pay. So I pay my gas, water, and sewer every month on a couple different properties. It's a nightmare. And then, then you call the office and it's this phone tree that you can't get through. You got to wait for 15 minutes. It's that type of stuff that, in my belief, is there's some businesses that probably have a good end product that don't get nearly the amount of business they could get because of how hard it is to interact with their technology and their phone system, to get to a human being. And so knowing that as a consumer, that's a pain point for me. I'm working internally to figure out how to make it as easy as possible. And it's been one of the main focuses, especially as you grow, because before it's like, oh, call me or text me, no problem. And then you're dealing with 80 to 100 pre-approvals a month and 57 clients in process, and more than one person can handle, to where it's got to be, if you've got a pre-approval, here's who you send an email to. If you've got a loan in process, here's who you should contact. If you've got this, but just making it super clear so people know how to interact. And I think what started to happen is we communicate exactly how to do business with us and make it super clear. The people that we honestly want to work with, that can look at that and go, okay, here's what I need to do. Here's step 1, 2, and 3, and do it. Their process is smooth and easy. The people that are hard to work with, it's kind of their own doing. And those are the people that, they get an email that says, here's the 3 things we need. Here's where you can securely upload them in bold print. We can't take photos. We can't take cutoff pages. And it's like, they didn't read the instructions for upload, so they sent it, they text it to me, and it's cut off. And it's a bank statement where we said we need a URL. And so
people don't read anything.
Right. And so but I feel like it's almost like weeding out the people that don't align with how you do business, which when you get to a certain level and you're busy enough, you can say in a really kind way, we might not be a fit. And that's okay. It's not like I'm, gonna turn away people and say, you don't deserve the help, but it's like, hey, here's exactly how to do business with us. If you can follow the simple instructions, it's going to be a walk in the park. If you can't, then not a walk in the park.
When I first was renting my house out over breaks, I was splitting it between Airbnb and VRBO because I needed the business. It was, I had just rehabbed the house, and at some point, it was the same boat as you, where I was like, the VRBO platform is not working for me. It's super complicated. It's difficult for the end user as well. Yeah, I know there's a VRBO crowd out there, and it's just not my crowd. So once I got to a certain point, I was able to back it off and say, all right, I'm just doing Airbnb. And it's really, kind of streamlined the process in the same way that maybe like an In-N-Out menu only has 7 items. And so, all right, if I want one of those 7 items, I'm going to In-N-Out. If I need any custom orders, I'm going to go to some other place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that in my business too, where doing as much business as we do, we're not desperate for 1 or 2 deals, where I can tell somebody with complete honesty and with serving them in mind, you know what, you need a 203 rehab loan, here's somebody you should talk to. They do a lot of those deals. We don't. You need a construction loan, talk to my guy at Umpqua Bank. You need a land loan, talk to my guy at US Bank. And feel good about the fact that, you know what, rather than saying, yeah, I can do that stuff too, and trudge through the process and learn it as I go with somebody and put them through that, it's just, here's the 7 things I do really well. If you got that, it's gonna be a great experience, like In-N-Out. And if it's other stuff, then you got to go down to Jasper's, wherever the heck it is.
Speaking of knowing yourself, so I had my students do, our first 3 weeks, we did a lot of communications regarding like the hiring process and catering your application materials to your end user rather than, so it was about like knowing yourself honestly and applying to companies that really fit your own tastes and preferences rather than just like responding blindly to applications. In addition to like knowing yourself, I'm just going to ask a couple quick questions about maybe the hiring process. And you said you maybe you actively sought out certain personality types that complement you pretty well. Is there anything when you, let's say when you put out a job posting or a feeler to people that you know, were there certain like types of people or skill sets that you actively sought out, and how did those shine through in the people that came to you?
Yeah, you know what's funny is I thought about this a lot more after I'd hired than I did before,
Okay.
on like, why is this person such a good fit and why has this person excelled so much? And so now looking at future hires, I think to myself, the organizational skills, the aligning with us where you truly care about clients and truly care about taking care of people, that matters. But one thing that I've been super impressed with everybody on my team is the ability to solve problems. And in my line of work, I was thinking about it because just this month, I hired a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and this company who's based in Sacramento does the vetting of 25,000 applicants. They only place 500 of them, so they're essentially placing the top 2%, which are college educated, tech savvy, have work experience. So these are high level people,
Hmm.
and $1,800 a month for a small business owner who's, it's a service. I'm paying the company here. I'm not paying employee tax and all that other stuff. I'm throwing all that out there to say, if I'm going to hire somebody who's coming out of college and they're going to bring their value to the business, they've got to be able to solve problems. If it's just tasks and it's like, here's the 10 tasks you need to do for the day, my VA in the Philippines is perfectly capable.
Hmm.
If they're going to be a higher level employee that I'm going to pay wages to and I'm going to pay taxes and whatnot, being in California, great state to be a small business, um, they're going to have to do things like, I've got somebody on my team who, without being prompted, without being tasked anything, has said, you know what? The way this system interacts with the leads that come in, there's a couple kinks in our system. Reaches out to the technology of one company and says, hey, we need these 3 different funnels to, it's looking for rates, refinance, and purchase. So it's 3 different types of leads that are coming in, and we're capturing that through the website. And then that's Zapier is pushing that into our top of mind CRM,
Hmm.
and the CRM doesn't know which one it is because it's coming in that way, but it's not like a line item in the different things, name, loan amount, all that. And so she's basically telling this system, hey, we need one of those 3 campaigns or one of those 3 different things to be listed here so that when Surefire gets it, they know which bucket to put it in.
Okay.
And so all that gets problem solved, and she figures out how to ask them, how do you do that? Okay, now you can do that. Now, Surefire, now that you're getting it this way and it's got one of 3 different things here, put it into a different campaign based on which one of those 3 it is. That's the kind of stuff where
Hmm.
it just makes me think that's an outstanding employee. And it's really cool for me as a business owner to sit back and know that stuff is going on, and
Hmm.
it doesn't have to come from me.
Yeah, there's
It
nothing
just
better.
comes from,
There's nothing better
yeah,
than an intern. I know for the first couple weeks they're going to have to ask for tasks, but there's nothing better than an intern that when they run out of tasks, they're actually looking to solve some sort of problem proactively rather than coming to your desk again and asking for 5 more tasks that sometimes require work of you to even think of. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
shout out to like everybody on my team. I can say with just a huge grin on my face that it's that type of person. They're like actively thinking about how to make things better within the business.
Now that
Cool.
you're looking for it, how would an applicant articulate their problem solving skills on paper?
I think some like real life examples. When I was doing the interview process with the VAs, they had a list of like 30 questions on what we should ask them.
Mhm.
And it came up a lot, like, what are some problems that you've encountered? And for people with limited work experience, it might be life experience, a problem you've encountered and how you'd solve it, how you solved it, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I agree with that 100%. It doesn't matter if you're a, a third or fourth year engineer that has much more technical experience than that first year, but the first year in a paragraph on their cover letter, for example, says, you know what, I may not have a ton of workforce experience yet, but here's a problem I encountered, and here's 3 sentences about specifically what I did to solve that problem. And then someone like you is like, well, I'd love to have that person as an entry-level employee.
Right.
Let's see, do I have any other questions here? Lastly, speaking about communication in general, what communication strategies have you found to have the most positive impact on your people, productivity, and or ability to persuade? I think this basically just goes back to Matt, the mortgage guy. Like, remind us again, kind of generally what you're about, because I feel like from my standpoint that you are about communication first and foremost. It doesn't even really matter. Your product could be anything, and I think that your whole system could more or less, be transferred to another entire.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a client facing and standpoint, communications wise, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, I was early, and along with trying to make a super fancy brand and my wife telling me Matt the mortgage guy is the way to go, she also gave me some advice because she'd hear me talking on the phone, and I'm talking with a finance degree, a history in banking, and all this financial knowledge, and did, without realizing it, was speaking fancy terms. I don't know who I was trying to press myself, um, but trying to justify all that student loan debt maybe.
Yeah.
But she told me, and I remember it, and I tell this story a lot. Just constructive criticism and good feedback. If you got a spouse, like, that's the person's always going to give it to you straight. And she said, just talk to people like you're talking to my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And her family, first generation in the US from Yugoslavia. Half of my clients probably feel like I'm speaking another language if I would have continued to speak like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my things that I've tried to implement, and I've gotten such positive feedback from so many people, of just keeping it simple. All my YouTube content, all the stuff I put out there, I try to take some part of the mortgage process that's more than likely confusing to 90% of people that come across it, and say, listen, here's a simplified version or way of looking at it. How do escrow accounts work? And I've got, YouTube comments of like, thank you so much. I've never known how escrow accounts work. I came across this 4-minute video and you put it simply. And so the communication that's talking to clients, and literally on like 2 or 3 calls per week, I have the conversation with somebody and I go, hey, listen, you're a firefighter. I don't expect you to know anything about mortgage, because they're like, I'm sorry, I'm new. It's my first house. I don't expect you to. And if you knew everything about mortgage, you wouldn't need me. You just click buttons online, you'd get a mortgage. But I'm here to make it simple and explain it in a way that's easy to understand. There's some what's that saying about how your true level of genius is being able to explain something that's really complicated in a easy fashion. And so that's been one of my claims to fame, I think, is just making it simple to understand.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. That's pretty much all the questions that I have. We really appreciate you, taking the time for this class and for this interview.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool thinking about some of this stuff that I probably don't think about. And really, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want all the constructive criticism I can get, because that's another philosophy that runs through me and everybody on my team, is like continually improving. And the only way to do that is to get feedback. And so we ask clients for it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what part of the process you liked. Tell us what part of the process was confusing or you didn't like, and literally trying to get better every single day.
Okay, cool. I'll try to build that into an assignment in the next week or two, and bombard your inbox with a bunch of critique.
Cool. Yeah. You're garbage.
No, you have to. We always, that's one thing for any peer review. We're basically you have to start with something positive, so you're not just shooting from the hip and just tearing, chopping someone's legs out from under them. But
Right.
my students are good people. They're smart people. They'll give you some feedback.
Cool. Yeah. And
All
I
right.
work with a lot of engineers and some of those analytical minds. So it'd be good to get some feedback on how they want to be communicated to and what things might be unclear about how we're doing things.
Cool. Well, thanks, Matt. I think that pretty much wraps up our time, but I appreciate it. We'll be in touch too. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, brother. All right,
That's
Sean.
Matt, that's Matt, the mortgage guy.
Sweet.